Lean bulking. Allow me to try and simplify and break this topic down for you. Seems quite simple. The whole goal and premise behind it is just to gradually build muscle at a steady rate and at the same time not accumulate too much body fat in the process. Yet, quite a lot of people do tend to mess up with this and not quite understand what is going on and what they should do. So allow me to break it down for you. First of all, who should be lean bulking? Who should not be lean bulking? Well, I guess it's pretty safe to say if you're under 15% body fat, you're a pretty lean individual. You can go straight into doing a lean bulk. For those who are a little bit fatter, if you're above 15% body fat, it would make more sense for you to start off with an overall body recomposition. Body recomposition, you can simultaneously build muscle and lose fat at the same time, whereas with the lean bulk, the main focus is actually just to build muscle, not necessarily to do both at the same time, obviously. So, a couple things we need to make clear. There's a very big difference between doing a lean bulk and between doing a dirty bulk. So if we compare the lean bulk with the dirty bulk, let's look at the goals. The goal of the lean bulk, of course, is to maximize muscle gain and minimize fat gain, whereas with the dirty bulk, the goal is just to maximize muscle gain, but also to maximize weight gain. You just want to get friggin' big. In terms of the calorie surplus strategy, usually tends to be around 0 to 250 calories, okay? Anything more than 500 calories, you're definitely in dirty bulk territory. In terms of the food quality, of course, with the lean bulk, you're keeping the food quality as high as possible, whereas with the dirty bulk, there is no consideration as to the quality of the food that you're having, and you're just shoving whatever you can into your mouth. Of course, the impact of this. Usually, if you keep the food quality high, you got high energy, less bloating, better digestion, you just feel good and you look better. Whereas with the dirty bulk, you're going to get bloating, you're going to feel sluggish, you probably have poor digestion, probably farting and high cholesterol. In terms of effort, lean bulk requires a lot more planning and tracking so that you don't overconsume. Whereas the dirty bulk, there's generally no effort at all. You're just eating more. So of course, if we look at the results of somebody who's done a lean bulk versus a dirty bulk, the lean bulk person will have not accumulated or accumulated very small amounts of body fat, whereas somebody who does a dirty bulk and takes no consideration into the amount of calories which they're consuming and the surplus that they're in, they're going to build muscle. Maybe they could have built a little bit more muscle than the person doing the lean bulk, but they have accumulated a lot of body fat in the process, and ultimately it'll probably get to the point where they need to start doing some sort of a cut to bring the body fat percentage down again. So let's get this graph out again because I friggin' love it. It's a comparison of two people. One, the white line, who is lean bulking, and somebody who is dirty bulking, the red line. So we'll see over the same period of time how much size they put on. Now you would think that the dirty bulk would derive greater results, but this is actually what happens, okay? The person who lean bulks can consistently lean bulk because they never really allow themselves to get fat enough so that they need to go and do a cut because their body fat percentage stays relatively low, so they can continuously be in this surplus, which is required to build muscle. The person who dirty bulks and they're over consuming, of course, it all starts off well, but then it gets to the point right here where their body fat percentage has probably got unrealistically high, well over 15%, they need to cut. So during this period of time right here, they need to be in a calorie deficit to bring their body fat percentage down. And obviously during this period of time, if you're in a deficit, you can't build muscle tissue. A lot of the time, you actually lose muscle. So there's a period here where they lose muscle. When they're happy with their body fat percentage once again, then they will continue with this bulk, but of course they're not doing it properly. They're excessively eating calories, and it once again gets to the point here where they got too fat again. They're like, damn it, I need to bring my body fat percentage down again. So they will do a cut once again, but of course during this period of time they are not able to put on muscle. In fact, they lose muscle because they're in such a calorie deficit because they need to get back down to the body fat percentage that they're going to be happy with. So this continuous cycle ends them up at this point here where, maybe they put on a little bit of size, but realistically, they haven't really changed a whole lot because they've just been bouncing from one and the other. So, of course, the lean bulk is going to be the way forward. So you might be thinking, okay, this is making sense, but one of the main issues I have is understanding how many calories I should be consuming to effectively be doing this lean bulk. And unfortunately, there's no exact formula out there which is going to tell you the optimal answer for you. It's going to vary from person to person, genetics, training experience, activity levels, and so on. So my best piece of advice would be to just have an idea or understanding around what your maintenance levels are. So what is it that you need to eat on a day-to-day basis that just basically keeps you at a constant? Okay. And the best way to do this is just to track for a certain period of time. If you've already been tracking, then that's great. All I would recommend you do is just very gradually add some more calories to your daily calorie intake. And this can be anywhere from 50 to 150, maybe even 250, right? It just depends on how conservative you want to be. If you're the type of person that you feel, if I just eat a little bit too much, I'm the type of person that accumulates fat really quick. Okay, well, in that case, I would recommend you just consume around 50 to 100 calories extra per day. If you're the type of person that really struggles to gain weight and you're already very lean, you have a fast metabolism, then maybe you need to add a little bit more. So maybe 200 to 250 calories would be a better bet. But this is really just down to a lot of trial and error, and it does require you to track and have a better understanding of how your body is responding by changing the calorie intake that you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. But if you want to look at the week as a whole and how you would structure it, it would look something like this. Every day throughout the week, you're in a very slight surplus. So Monday all the way till Sunday, you're in a slight calorie surplus. That would be like, for example, the optimal amount. You're not over consuming. If you wanted to be a little bit more conservative, then you have option 2, whereby maybe there's 2 days in the week where you're just staying around maintenance, and these could be the days when you're resting. For example, if you're the type of person to train 5 days a week, but on the Thursday and the Sunday you want to have a rest day, then maybe it would make sense to pull back calorie intake a little bit, since you will be burning less as you're not going to the gym. One of the best ways to track progress and make changes is by monitoring how your body weight is changing. So when it comes to weekly weight gain targets, there's a few things you need to take into consideration. First of all, if you weigh yourself only once per week, it's not going to be very clear what's actually happening. So the best thing to do would be to weigh yourself every single day, ideally at the same time when your body is in similar conditions. So my advice would be to do it first thing in the morning after going to the toilet. So we're going to add all the numbers up, and then you'll get the average of the week. And I'm going to give you 2 different comparisons here. Someone who's being very conservative and doing a lean bulk versus somebody who's doing a bulk, not necessarily a dirty bulk, but just a bulk where they're just not really tracking or being sensible with how much food they're eating. So somebody doing a lean bulk, if you take the average, divide by 7, 88.17. So they started off with 88. Throughout the week, it's gone to 88.17. So we've added 0.17 kilograms, which is pretty conservative. Whereas somebody who's just doing that bulk, the average is 88.98. So they've added 0.98 kilograms, which is pretty much 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram of weight gain per week is pretty unrealistic to say that that is going to be all muscle mass. So a good guideline would be for most people to aim for an average of 0.1 to 0.2 kilograms per week. Now, these are just rough guidelines, and it is going to depend upon a couple of things: genetics, training experience, metabolism, things like that. So somebody who has a fast metabolism and they're a complete beginner realistically could get away with accumulating more weight and the percentage of that weight gain be new muscle growth. Okay. Whereas somebody who already has maybe a lot of existing muscle tissue and they're trying to do this lean bulk because they want to continue to get a little bit bigger, the rate of growth that they will see is not going to be the same compared to somebody who is experiencing those newbie gains. And one thing that's worth mentioning is just because you're gaining weight, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're building muscle, right? In order for this to actually effectively work, you need to be going to the gym regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean every single week. You don't have to go every single day, every single week, but you need to be going on a weekly basis. And this is the biggest thing most people struggle with, is the consistency of doing it week in, week out. I would say at least go to the gym twice and do resistance training, right? There needs to be a synergy of the type of training that you're doing, resistance training, with progressive overload. Okay, there needs to be more mechanical tension applied to the working muscle on a week-to-week basis. And then you combine that with consuming enough calories, at the very least maintenance, maybe in a little bit of a surplus depending upon what stage of training you're at, in order for everything to work together. And then on top of that, a lot of people would ask me, well, should I be doing cardio if I'm doing this lean bulk? Because maybe if I do the cardio, it's going to, eliminate or reduce the amount of fat which I might put on whilst doing this. And let me say this, if you are doing this properly, as in you're eating just the right amount, there shouldn't really be a need for you to do the cardio. But it is sometimes a safe bet or an insurance policy which could be implemented in order for you to maybe minimize that fat gain if you have gone a little bit overboard with the calories which you've consumed. So no, not necessary, but can still be useful. But you need to understand, if you are struggling to gain weight and you're doing lots of cardio at the same time, maybe pull back on the amount of cardio you're doing, because otherwise you're just going to need to eat more to offset the calories which you're burning. But if you are the type of person that you find, no matter what, you just seem to add body fat pretty quickly, then it may be more advisable for those people to do just some low intensity, steady state cardio at the same time. And just like the consistency with the training that you're doing, you have to be very consistent with this nutrition approach that you're following, right? You cannot overconsume on a regular basis. You can't be doing these binges or having cheat meals too frequently. And it's often the case where so many people just think they're in that mindset of, well, I'm bulking, so if I overconsume, it's not that much of a problem because it's just going to, I'll just use it as fuel, or I'm just going to add more muscle. And that's not the case. You almost have to be just as strict with doing a lean bulk as you would be when it comes to doing a cut. Okay. And it's definitely going to pay off in the long run, because you'll never really need to do a cut if you effectively do a lean bulk. So hopefully this video has made it a little bit clearer for you guys to understand. And of course, if you're struggling with trying to figure out which program you should be following, which exercises you should be doing, all the splits, at least 90% of them in my app, are going to be absolutely perfect to follow when you are doing a lean bulk. So go and check them out, thirstapp.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.